Good morning, children. Today we are going to do the last part of humidity. As we have already dealt with the two types of rainfall, today we are going to deal with the cyclonic rainfall and distribution of rainfall in general. Cyclonic rainfall, which is also known as frontal rainfall because it develops on the front, and this type of rainfall it is associated with the tropical as well as temperate cyclone. So we can say that we get this type of rainfall in the temperate and tropical region. Now we will deal with the mechanism, or how does the cyclonic or frontal rain occur. First point is converging of warm and cold air mass. So when warm and cold air mass, it comes from the opposite direction towards each other. Converging means it comes towards each other. A line is developed. That line it is known as the front. Then what happens is the warm air rises over cold air. So when it comes together, the warm air it starts to being lighter. It is lighter than the cold air. So the cold air it subducts below the warm air. So warm air rises above the cold air. Then after that, the third point is warm air cools and condensation takes place. So as the warm air is rising over the cold air, because of the cold air, the warm air it starts to expand and cool. Then what will happen? Condensation takes place, and we all know after condensation there is definitely precipitation. That is known as the cyclonic or frontal rainfall, or we can say that's how cyclonic or frontal rainfall occur. Now we are going to learn about the characteristics of cyclonic rainfall. The first characteristic is cyclonic rainfall is in the form of drizzle. So cyclonic rainfall usually is in the form of drizzle. It's not always, but usually it is in the form of drizzle. Then second one is cold front associated with long duration and warm front associated with short duration. So when the cyclonic or frontal rainfall has occurred because of the cold front, then it is quite widespread as well as it's for a long duration. And if it is associated with the warm front, then it is in the form of thunder shower, and it's for a very short duration. And the last characteristic is the cyclonic rain that is occurring in the tropical cyclonic region. It is very heavy, but it is for a short duration. And the cyclonic rain that is occurring in the temperate cyclonic area, it is much lighter, but it lasts for a very long time. It lasts for many days. After learning about the characteristics, now we are going to learn about the distribution of precipitation, okay, as to where the precipitation is distributed. So there's a great variation in the distribution of rainfall pattern, but generalization can be made about the distribution of precipitation in the world, okay. Though there's variation, but we can generalize the distribution pattern. First point is rainfall is highest in the equatorial region. It is highest in the equatorial region and decreases as we go towards the polar region. It gradually starts to decrease, and there is a great deal of irregularity in the distribution of rainfall from equator towards the poles. The coastal area receives heavier rainfall than the interior. So what does it mean? The coastal area, since it is closer to the water body, so lots of moisture is there, so obviously they receive lots of rainfall, whereas the interior of the continent, it is very far away from the source of moisture. That's why there is lesser amount of moisture in the interior of the continent. The third point will be more precipitation on windward side. So we all know that more precipitation is received in the windward side, and lesser amount of rainfall towards the leeward side of the mountain. Next point that we are discussing is between 35 to 45-degree heavy rainfall on the eastern side. So within this latitude, this heavy rainfall on the eastern coastal region, which slowly decreases towards the east. That's because it is influenced by the southeasterly wind. And in the latitude of 45 degree to 65 degree north and south, heavy rainfall occurs on the western side. That is because it is influenced by the westerlies, and the amount of rainfall decreases as we move towards the eastern direction from the western side. Point is that there's lots of rainfall over the ocean, then over the continent. That's because of a greater amount of evaporation takes place in the ocean, so there is greater amount of condensation taking place as well as greater amount of precipitation taking place. Let us now deal with the factors affecting the distribution of rainfall. So the first factor that is affecting the distribution of rainfall is the latitude. Okay, the equatorial region, which is also known as the belt of calm or the doldrum or the convergence zone of the south trade wind and the north trade wind, it receives very heavy convectional type of rainfall, whereas because of the shifting of the pressure belts, that is basically caused because of the shifting of the thermal equator, there is occurrence of rainfall in winter in the Mediterranean Sea. So that is there is a great difference between the amount of rainfall received in the equatorial region and in the Mediterranean region. That's because of the difference in the basically we can say that that's difference in the latitude. Whichever area is affected by the northeast and the southeast trade wind, they get the maximum amount of moisture, especially on the eastern side. Here in the slide there's a mistake, it's written rainfall on the west, but it is actually rainfall on the east. Factor is the distribution of this continents and ocean. Okay, the arrangement of land and water that is there on the earth's surface, it affects to a great deal the amount of the distribution of precipitation. Only 19% of the precipitation that falls on the land, and round about 81% of the precipitation it falls on the water body. Places that is close to the sea, they receive more rainfall than places that is far away from it. We all know that mountain barrier, it causes orographic kind of rainfall. When we were dealing with the orographic rainfall, we dealt with it. Now wind is forced to rise when a mountain barrier comes on the way of the moisture laden wind. Then obviously the wind, it is forced to rise. After it is forced to rise, more rainfall occurs on the windward. If the mountain is very high, more rainfall it occurs on the windward side of the mountain. And the summer monsoon, it produces heavy rainfall, and they have given an example of the Himalayas. The southern slope of the Himalayas receive very heavy rainfall. That's because of the monsoon wind that is blowing from the Arabian Sea towards the Himalayas. So now girls, we've completed the chapter on humidity. Okay, please see the presentation properly. If you do not understand anything, you feel free to ask me questions. Bye bye and take care of yourself.